Welcome back to my channel, Revenge with Melissa.
It's just family, dear. That's what my mother said when she told me I wasn't invited to my own brother's wedding. Not a plus one they couldn't afford. Not a scheduling conflict. Not even a stupid misunderstanding. I, his only sister, was not family enough to make the guest list. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. 3 weeks later? That same brother was blowing up my phone at 2 a.m. because he needed my credit line to save his entire wedding. And do you know what I did? I was on a cliffside in Portland, Oregon, watching the Pacific crash against the rocks, and I let it ring. Music kicks in, low, dramatic underscore. Stay with me. Because this isn't just a story about being left out. This is about what happens when the family scapegoat finally stops picking up the phone. My name is Jenny. I grew up in the kind of family that looks perfect in photos: colonial house in New Jersey, fairy lights on the porch, wine flowing at every dinner. The kind of family where, from the outside, everything looks warm and golden. But I knew the truth. Because I was the one holding the camera. My brother Mark, older, charming, law school graduate, was the golden child. And I don't use that term loosely. I mean it in the most textbook, clinical sense of the phrase. When Mark won awards, my parents threw dinners. When I got promoted last year, genuinely promoted, real achievement, my mother forgot to call. I was the scaffolding. The invisible support structure that kept everyone else's moments standing tall. I co-signed things. I organized parties. I stayed late, showed up early, and never, ever asked for credit. And for a long time, I told myself that's just what family does. Then came the Thursday morning that changed everything. I was buttoning my coat in my Brooklyn apartment, getting ready for work, when my phone rang. It was my mother. And before she even spoke, I knew. You know that pause? That chill behind someone's voice before they say the thing that lands like a slap. She said, and I quote, "Jenny, you're not invited to Mark's wedding. It's just family, dear." I forgot how to breathe. I stood there staring at the dusty ficus in my window, phone pressed to my ear, repeating it back to myself. Just family. I was his only sister. I was the family. But somehow, that word, just, had cut me clean out of the frame. Before I could even find the words to respond, my phone buzzed. Group text. From Mark. Hey everyone, just confirming the guest list is tight. No extras. Hope you understand. No extras. Can you believe the audacity? He didn't even message me directly. Not one word. Just a mass decree sent to everyone confirming I didn't belong, and he couldn't even be bothered to say it to my face. I sat on the edge of my bed until my coffee went cold. And then, somewhere beneath the hurt and the disbelief, something else rose up. Clarity. Now, if this were a normal family, maybe there's a conversation. Maybe someone calls to explain. Maybe Mark texts privately and says, "Look, it's complicated, but I love you." That's not what happened. What happened was silence. Clean, deliberate, organizational silence. The kind that tells you the decision wasn't made in a moment of thoughtlessness, it was made in a meeting. I kept replaying the hits in my head. Mark's college essays, I wrote the outlines because he was better with numbers. Mom's 60th birthday party, I coordinated everything, the venue, the flowers, the catering, while she gushed to every guest about how thoughtful Mark was for remembering to bring the champagne. His law school graduation, I skipped my own vacation to attend. I had been erased so gradually, so quietly, I almost didn't notice until I was standing completely outside the frame. So I did the only rational thing. I bought a one-way ticket to Portland, Oregon, and I disappeared. I didn't tell anyone. No dramatic exit, no goodbye text, no Facebook post. I just vanished. The same way they'd been quietly erasing me for years. Except this time, I was the one holding the pen. The group chat. From Portland, cozy in my little and above a bookstore that smelled like cinnamon and old stories, I checked the family group chat, a chat I had created, by the way, and lovingly named Homebase, and watched the wedding prep unfold in real time. Mark posting champagne selfies. Serena posting countdown stickers. Mom double texting, replying to her own messages, clearly anxious. And then I spotted it. A blurry photo of the kitchen table covered in receipts, notebooks, and a calculator. Budget night, Mom wrote. Almost there. Nobody responded. I zoomed in on another photo. Behind Mark and Serena laughing on the patio, through the open door, a whiteboard. Numbers. Crossed out figures. And one word I could barely make out. Deadline. I didn't say a word. I just watched. The voicemails begin. By day 4, my phone was erupting. 15 missed calls. 9 voicemails. Dozens of texts, from Mom, from Dad, from Mark himself. The same brother who couldn't include me in a group text 3 weeks ago was suddenly the most attentive sibling in America. Can you be an adult for once and call us back? This is serious. That was Mark. I was shaking with rage. Not because of the insult, I'd heard worse from him. But because of the audacity of the ask. The absolute nerve of a man who publicly declared me an extra now demanding I act like family. Mom's voicemails were worse. She started soft, just checking in, hope you're safe, and degraded rapidly. By message 4, she'd dropped all pretense. Jenny, this isn't funny. We need your help. And there it was. Not, we're sorry. Not, we were wrong. We need your help. The smoking gun. Then came the voicemail that made everything make sense. Dad's voice, low and tight with frustration. I know you're upset about the wedding stuff, but this is your family, Jenny. We need you. Mark needs you. You're the only one with a clean credit line. We'll make it up to you. But right now, we need that signature. I sat in that sunlit Portland cafe, rain tapping on the window, and I listened to that message 3 times. The only one with a clean credit line. That's what I was to them. Not a daughter. Not a sister. A financial instrument. A co-signer they'd kept polished and ready for exactly this kind of moment. They hadn't forgotten to invite me to the wedding. They'd been saving me for the bill. Here's the thing about leverage. Real leverage isn't a threat. Real leverage is the moment you realize you don't owe anyone an explanation. I deleted the voicemails one by one. Not out of cruelty. Not out of revenge. Out of something much more powerful, indifference. The kind of indifference that can only be earned after years of showing up for people who never once showed up for you. I opened my notebook and started writing a list. Things I no longer accept. Conditional love disguised as tradition. Manipulation packaged as family duty. Being the emergency contact for people who don't remember your birthday. And while I was writing that list, something extraordinary was happening back home. The group chat, my group chat, that I had created, went dark. No more champagne selfies. No more countdown stickers. Serena's posts on Instagram started disappearing, one by one, until her profile was blank. And then, like a headline dropping in slow motion, Serena's mother posted on Facebook. "The wedding has been postponed indefinitely." Postponed indefinitely. I read that phrase and felt absolutely nothing. Because I knew what it actually meant. The venue had pulled the booking. The bank had flagged the application. The debt was real, the deadline had passed, and nobody had been able to fix it, because the one person they'd built their whole financial plan around was sitting on a cliff in Oregon, watching the ocean. Cousin Amber texted me privately, "I don't know exactly what happened, but your mom was crying on the porch when we showed up. Some guys from the venue came. It was bad." I could picture it. Mom in her pearls, pretending she hadn't bet it all on a fantasy. Dad blaming a banking glitch. Mark fuming because reality had finally told him no. And Serena, smart, brilliant Serena, had packed her things and walked out. The golden boy didn't make it to the altar. Not because I did anything. Because I finally chose not to. Now, I want to be clear about something. I didn't blow anything up. I didn't call the venue. I didn't warn Serena. I didn't post anything on social media or send a single spiteful text. I just wasn't there. And that was enough. Because here's what they never understood about me, about any scapegoat who finally steps back: the whole structure only works if we keep holding it up. The moment we stop, it falls. Not because we broke it. Because it was never actually standing on its own. The voicemail from Mom came at 2:13 a.m. I found it the next morning, sunlight slanting through the curtains, the smell of good coffee drifting up from the cafe downstairs. I almost didn't play it. But I did. "Well, I hope you're happy." Everything fell apart. Serena's family is humiliated. Mark is devastated. "This is on you, Jenny. All you had to do was answer. One signature. One call. But no, you had to make a point. I hope it was worth it." She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She assigned blame like a judge reading a verdict. The guilt rose up, of course it did. It had been planted deep. But underneath it, something stronger held steady. Because the only thing I had done was nothing. I didn't lie to vendors. I didn't take out loans I couldn't cover. I didn't build an entire event on someone else's credit and assume they'd come running when the house of cards fell. I simply wasn't available. For the first time in my entire adult life, I was simply not available. And that was enough to bring the whole thing down. That's how fragile their world was without me in it. I set my phone to do not disturb, tucked its screen side down in the nightstand drawer, and went to a fire pit on the cliffs with my new friends, Clara, Mo, Devin, people who asked what made me happy, not what I could do for them. People who said, "We're really glad you showed up," and meant it with zero strings attached. I slept like a rock. And then, a week later, something unexpected happened. They came to me. I was back in Brooklyn, just briefly, to collect a few things before subletting my apartment. My flight to Iceland was booked. I had no intention of telling anyone I was in town. The buzzer rang 3 times in quick succession. I looked out the window. There they were. Mom, Dad, and Mark. 3 stories below, huddled under a black umbrella. Mark looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dad's coat hung off him. Mom's heels were sinking into the wet sidewalk. I rode the elevator down. I opened my door slowly. 3 stunned faces. A long silence. Mark spoke first. Jenny. I raised one hand. Don't. Just say what you came to say. Mom stepped forward, clutching her purse like a lifeline. We made mistakes. Terrible ones. I thought I was doing what was best for everyone. You always seemed so strong. My father cleared his throat. We thought you didn't need us. That you were fine. And then Mark, red-eyed, voice cracking, looked at me and said the truest thing he had ever said in his life. I messed up. I know that. But I counted on you fixing it. Like always. Like always. There it was. Not a full apology. Not real remorse. But the truth, at least. Finally. The admission that he had always known, on some level, exactly what he was doing. And then Mom looked at me with something desperate behind her eyes. We came to ask if you'd consider helping us still. The house, the debt, it's worse than we admitted. And your credit. I raised my hand again. They went quiet. I reached beside me for the suitcase that was already packed, already zipped, already waiting. I stepped into the hallway. Jenny, wait. I walked toward the elevator. Steady steps. Calm heart. Jenny, please don't just walk away. The elevator door slid open. I stepped in. They didn't follow. They just stood there in the hallway, soaking, still holding everything they had refused to see until it was too late. The doors began to close. And just before they did, I met my mother's eyes. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I nodded. One small, firm nod. I heard you. I see you. But I'm not coming back. The doors shut. Iceland was everything. I stood under a sky cracked open with auroras, green and violet ribbons rippling overhead like the universe had something to say, and I thought about the version of me who used to book trips like this someday, who thought she needed someone else's permission to go. She was gone. Back home, the family continued their orbit. Mark moved into a studio apartment. The New Jersey house went on the market. Dad stopped pretending he was fine and finally started therapy, according to Amber, who still texts me occasionally. Mom called twice. I didn't answer. She left one voicemail, softer this time, tired, with none of the varnish. I don't expect you to call. I'm not sure you should. I just wanted you to know we're thinking of you. No apology, still. But the defensiveness was gone. And sometimes that's as close as some people ever get. I texted Mark once, weeks after Iceland. Hope you're doing okay. Heard about everything. Wishing you peace and clarity as you figure out next steps. He never replied. And honestly? That was fine. Because here's what I know now that I didn't know then. When you spend your whole life being the reliable one, the fixable one, the one people call when everything goes wrong, you start to believe that your value is in your usefulness. That love is transactional. That if you just keep giving, eventually they'll see you. But some people will never see you. Not because you're invisible. Because they need you invisible. The moment you step into the light, the moment you say, no, not this time, everything shifts. And yes, things fall apart. Yes, they blame you for the falling. But you were never holding it together for them. You were holding it together because you were afraid of what would happen if you didn't. Portland taught me what happens. The world keeps turning. The ocean keeps crashing against the cliffs. Wild flowers bloom late because life is stubborn. And somewhere on a misty trail, if you're lucky, you meet a woman in a mustard beanie who says, "You don't owe anyone an explanation for existing, you know." And you realize she's right. You book the flight to Iceland. You sleep under the auroras. You build a life that is loud and full and completely, unapologetically yours. And when they buzz your apartment at 9 p.m. in the rain, desperate and dripping, you nod. You step into the elevator. And you let the doors close. If this story hit close to home, drop a comment. Tell me your golden child versus scapegoat story, because I know I'm not the only one who has lived this. And if you're in the middle of it right now, if you're the one answering every call, co-signing every dream, organizing every party while they hand the champagne to someone else, this is your sign. You don't have to blow anything up. You just have to stop picking up the phone. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.